For 7 years, Los Angeles County has burned at the hands of one man.
Could we be talking serial arson?
And for 7 years, he's been pursued by John Orr.
Now, typically these guys are loners. They have trouble with relationships. They have trouble with their jobs.
Head of L.A. County's Chief Fire Investigation Unit and expert in point of origin.
One Forest Service worker had a burning love for her estranged husband. I'm Torrin Atkinson.
Horticulture makes some people go environmental. I'm Kevin Leeson.
Do you feel stupid? Are you ugly? You may be an arsonist. Please don't light fires. I'm Allan Newell.
Lighting pillows on fire doesn't make you hot stuff in bed. I'm Joe Foljam, and this is Caustic Soda.
There's a Latin word, arsionem,
Okay.
which means a burning.
Oh.
From the root as.
So this is obviously somebody came up with this who like to light their farts on fire.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
To burn or glow, same as ash.
All right.
Okay.
Like sort of ember-ish.
ash. Yeah.
Yep. And arson phobia is the fear of fire, but also pyrophobia. Pyrophobia and arson phobia.
Oh, so
I've heard of pyrophobia, but not arson phobia.
wanna talk
Alan's
about baby
here.
Pirates?
Alan,
How you doing?
good. Welcome back.
It's good to be back. It's been a while.
It's been. You were on our Burns episode
Yes.
and our wildfires episode.
Yep.
And our urban fires episode.
Yep.
They're somewhat related, obviously.
Part of our fires.
Could just sit here
series
for a
of-
whole Saturday afternoon.
Allan Newell,
On fire.
On fire.
Esquire.
Esquire.
Nice.
Do you want to talk about the science, some arson science? But we should say that arson is the criminal act of deliberately setting fire to property.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
What about not
Right.
property? What about setting fire to...
Set fire to
An
know-
idea?
Yeah,
is that
precisely. Or
figurative arson.
like a tumbleweed,
That's mine. It's my property.
right?
Oh,
wow.
yeah.
Ooh,
I own all
That would
tumbleweeds.
belong to the state, theoretically.
There you go.
So everything on
Everything's
Earth...
owned.
Everything on Earth is
Just ask
owned.
the Native Americans.
All right, okay.
That's right. I'm actually going to back up and do Kevin's job for a second.
Okay.
I'll tell you why I'm here talking a bit. I'm not an arson investigator.
No.
But we, in the fire service, we all do receive training in identifying and preserving evidence of arson.
Okay.
Right.
It's a little difficult when you're on an attack line in a fire, putting out 125 gallons a minute,
Right.
and you're trying not to blow away the device that started the fire,
Right.
kind of
Wow,
thing.
man.
Right.
So
I
we
can
have
only
to
get a
keep-
few drops out at a time.
It's-
That is a lot.
Yeah.
That's why you're a firefighter and I just pee like normal
It's
people.
special. Well, you drink an entire vat of beer.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's why I'm here. There's three words that even in the courts get mixed up with
Okay.
arson.
All right.
And the term fire setting or arson or pyromania
Right.
Okay.
are three. And they're very distinct and very different.
What's the difference between fire setting and arson?
Well, fire setting is a behavior.
Right.
Arson is a crime.
Okay.
Okay.
And pyromania is a mental disorder, which not all mental health experts even agree that it is a thing.
Oh.
So I'm
So
sure
all-
Dr. Rob would have a take.
These three things are kind of together they create the arson scenario.
What kind
You
of?
need pyromania to become a fire setter and to get convicted of arson.
Do you though?
No.
No.
No. Sorry.
But a person could be a pyromaniac who set a fire and they got convicted of arson.
Absolutely.
Ah.
Yes. So everyone in this room has most likely at some point in their life set a fire of
So
some sort.
we're all fire setters.
We're all fire setters. So fire setting is a behavior. There's two kinds, accidental and intentional.
Right.
So
Both.
accidental fire setting is you're camping. You set you diligently build a fire ring, you set your fire, you pour water on it when it's over, you stir the ashes, the whole thing, and something goes wrong and you burn down 50,000 hectares of a national park.
It's a bad day.
It's an accident. You're clearly not an arsonist. It wasn't a crime.
Right.
But a lot of small fire or a lot of fires are started by children playing with matches. They're not. It's not a mental
Malicious.
fire. Yeah, they're simply curious about the matches, and it gets out of control.
Right, but probably because they're a pyromaniac at heart.
Well, that's always possible.
Well, after they get all the attention from that first one,
Yeah.
Then they'll try it again.
We'll get back to that, actually. So now pathological fire setting may be a symptom in a range of psychiatric disorders, which will eventually get us to the pyromania.
Okay.
So arson is a crime. It's a criminal act in which one willfully, as you said, maliciously sets fire to or aids in setting fire to a structured dwelling or property of another, or in certain cases even to themselves for insurance crime.
Right.
Pyromania is a mental disorder. Individuals with pyromania engage in intentional and pathological fire setting, but they don't always commit the crime of arson.
Right.
There are people who suffer from fire, an impulse control issue where they have to light fires, but they very carefully, burn paper in the kitchen sink kind of thing,
Right.
just to watch the flames.
Got it.
So they're not committing arson. So even in courts, there have been those words used interchangeably.
Right.
And defense attorneys and prosecutors sometimes do it for their own purposes.
Right. They need to have you or someone like you in the court at all times, and whenever that happens, there's a little bell. Ding!
Pretty sure the courts pay people to obfuscate.
No, even better. Every time somebody does that, they, light a bic.
Oh,
Right.
Or they get a bucket of water dropped in their head.
Oh, yeah. Oh, how very,
You can't do that on
Can't
television.
do that on television?
Is that green slime?
It's an excellent Nickelodeon moment.
What kind of people set fires?
All kinds of people.
Well, probably unhappy, I would think.
Well,
Generally.
the kind of people who set fires for arson purposes, for criminal
Not
purposes.
babies. Everyone except for babies.
Pretty rare for babies to do
Ages
it.
8 and up. Ages 8 to 80.
And generally not dead people. Although there might be a
Live
few
people.
fires started
Right.
by dead
Ooh.
people. But generally.
I think that's the
Yeah,
best
I don't know how
answer.
that one works.
That's the best answer you're going to get out of us.
Okay, so
We're not the experts here.
most arsonists are male,
Okay.
but the numbers of females are increasing, and they're not exactly sure why.
Women's
Something's
lib.
going
It's
on.
women's lib.
Oh, first we give them the
what's
right to vote, then
and
we give them
now-
the right to start fires.
No, they take the right to start fires.
Females actually tend to commit arson differently than males do.
Okay.
Females tend to set fire to their own property or that of partners, relatives, or neighbors. It's often a revenge kind of issue.
Okay.
Oh, this is, screw that guy. I'm going to burn all his clothes.
There is also a certain measure of it is attention seeking that occurs for some people.
Yep.
Arson offenders are often unmarried, poorly educated, live alone, and are unemployed.
Okay.
When we discuss some of the arson cases
Fire
coming
is
up,
their only friend.
fires, well, they find a sense of power in it, and they
Right.
certainly do.
Yeah, that, and you can't live with somebody because all those powerful solvents you have around your house that, in order to start fires would make other people dizzy and
Well, it's hard to
sick.
go out at night to commit deeds when you have a partner going, where are you going?
Right.
What you doing?
Where are you going with that?
What's going on?
That can of
Are
gasoline.
you cheating on me with fire?
Why do you smell like kerosene?
That's right. Now, these next couple of points are kind of interesting. I did get them actually from a psychiatric, an article called Fire Setting, Arson, Pyromania, and the Forensic Mental Health Experts. It's actually quite fascinating reading. But they also list that arson offenders are often socially isolated, introverted, physically unattractive.
Oh, wow.
And-
Was that necessary to put that in there?
And less assertive than other mental disorder patients.
And that's
Less assertive than other mental disorders.
I mean, we all kind of believe in the beauties in the eye of the beholder philosophy,
Right.
don't we?
Are they ugly because of all the burn marks?
Oh, yeah,
They cover the sweat.
Maybe.
Their hair is all scorched.
Yeah.
I think in this sense, ugly means generally that's what society thinks about them, even though somebody might find them very attractive.
Or
Is
they
it right?
themselves thinking about
Or
themselves.
they think about
Right.
themselves.
So, well, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think it's more like they're just constantly smoldering, right? Not in a good way.
To their
Yeah.
eyes.
Yeah.
There is a high level of mental illness in arsonists.
Sure.
And interestingly, in one study, arsonists were found to be 4 times more likely to have a mental disorder than were homicide offenders. So you're more likely to be crazy if you're an arsonist than if you're a murderer.
Right.
Right. Yeah, because there's actual reasons to murder.
Now that's getting to the people that have mental disorders causing them to light fires. There's a
pathological.
lot of people who light fires that don't have mental disorders, and in those cases, it's often juveniles. So another large group is just juvenile males.
Okay. All right. And why do they do it?
I remember starting a fire just for fun once.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, we got
What'd
a
you
little
light?
out of control.
Yeah?
It was in my barn.
Okay.
I lived on a farm.
That is not a good place for a fire.
No.
No,
In a
no.
big wooden barn.
In a big
Full
wooden
of
barn.
hay.
I did manage to put it out. It was a little touch and
go.
go there for a while.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was just like, ooh, fire. I can do that.
Yep.
I think maybe it's a power thing.
So I got a pop quiz.
All right.
Pop
Okay.
quiz. Boo-da, bam, ba, ba, bam.
Feels
aside
pressure.
from
Shake it
just-
off, Kevin. Shake it off. You can do it this time. Come on. Shake it off. Do it.
aside from just general curiosity, children playing with matches, that
Okay.
sort of thing, there are 7 motives that are generally recognized.
7 motives of arsonists.
7 motives driving arsonists to light
Okay.
fires.
Okay.
Yep. Okay.
Money.
Well, that would be for the insurance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Attention, which I think
Yeah.
I noted earlier.
Concealing another crime is. So that would include insurance fraud. So
Okay.
you're burning down a place. But that also includes you've just shot someone and murdered them and you burn the house down.
Right.
So concealing
that.
another crime.
Concealing another
Okay.
crime.
Sex appeal.
Kevin, is there anything you want to tell us about you
Can
and
only get
fire?
it up while there's while a warehouse is on fire.
No, it's
Oh,
like
pyrophilia.
You know.
Oh, right.
That's my next. I haven't even gotten to that one yet. Like, you light the fire, and then arsonists are always coming back and standing outside watching it burn.
Okay.
and
That's
like
quite frequent.
You know,
Yeah.
you sort of like elbow the lady next to you, like, cool fire, huh?
Right.
Yeah.
Is that on the list?
Well,
It should be on the list.
not really. You got to remember most arsonists really don't have many relationships.
Yeah, that's
and
how
if they-
you're trying to start one.
And if they do, they're not usually that
Listen,
healthy.
all the florid language and all the poetry and romance stories, or whatever, it's always about burning passion and lighting a fire.
yes.
And all the rest of that stuff. They just take it like to the next level.
So just burning a church down would
Yeah.
really
Yeah,
okay.
precisely. As a expression of love.
I'm going to say revenge.
Yeah,
Is
that was-
revenge on the list?
Yes, revenge is
man.
indeed on the list.
Hey.
Revenge is on the list. A lot of fires are done for revenge.
Yeah.
Sexual gratification. Pyrophilia.
No, but we will get to that.
Oh.
Because it is a thing, but it's not considered one of these 7. It's
I guess you don't have to set an illegal arson fire to get off by watching fire, right?
You
You,
know,
could, you could
but-
have a fireplace.
It's a very common trope, though, that arsonists are all standing in a crowd masturbating, watching their fire.
Right.
And that's because, all it takes is one person to actually do that, and that becomes the biggest
Yeah.
story ever.
Yeah.
So we will actually be discussing a very sick man today
Okay.
who had sexual satisfaction from his fires.
Okay.
But
All right.
it's not a big enough thing. In fact, pyromania is a very rare mental disorder.
Right.
And setting fires for sexual arousal, which is part of pyromania, is even smaller within that category.
Okay.
Right.
I had numerous studies where they studied hundreds of arsonists, and none of them had that. None
Right.
of them.
Right.
So it's a very low number.
All right.
Okay, so mostly
it doesn't make the
movies.
big 7, but it's in there
It
somewhere.
exists, yeah.
So we got concealing another crime. We got revenge. Mm-hmm. We need 5 more.
Now, concealing another crime, I kind of cheated here. Fraud is a separate category.
Okay.
But concealing another crime and fraud are
Okay.
they fall in the same. So we've got 3 already, to be fair.
Warmth. I'm just going to set this house on fire
Oh,
because
it's
I'm
so
cold.
cold.
Right.
Nah, 'cause, see, then it's not a crime. You're just keeping warm.
Well, if I set somebody's house on fire because I'm cold, it's a crime.
Yeah.
There
Yeah,
you go.
I guess.
I know. I'm not a pyromaniac. I'm not an arsonist, so I'm trying to. Why would I light a house? I don't know. Cold. I'm cold. That's why I would light something
I
on
have
fire.
gone to many house fires that were started by squatters trying to keep warm.
Yeah.
Right.
But those aren't arsons, right? So
Yeah, they're accidental fires.
Well, if Alfred taught me anything, some people just want to watch the world burn.
oh, yeah.
Michael Caine.
There is one we have kind of brushed along, mental disorders. There
Okay.
are,
Just generally a mental
yeah.
disorder.
It doesn't have to be pyromania. It can be a simple mental disorder that
Sure.
causes destructive behaviors.
Yeah.
We're not talking about just childlike curiosity. That's not on the
Not
list.
childlike
talking about
curiosity, but there is
deliberate.
one that kids do that's in this group.
Attention?
Vandalism.
Vandalism.
Just
Right.
vandalism.
I just want to wreck something.
Just it's frequently the last day of summer vacation, so we find the bundle of paper pushed up against the door to the school. It's never going to burn the school down, but it always makes a nice fire. Dumpster fires in British Columbia here, the greatest number of arson fires are vandalism,
Right.
and they're
'Cause
perpetrated against.
as British Columbians, we're thrill seekers.
And we have it in for schools, parks, playgrounds, abandoned buildings, and cars because those
Okay.
are the largest targets of vandalism.
We're also so confident that it's so wet here that nothing will last on fire for very long.
That is. You got the firefighter in the sky helping you out along the way.
St. Florian, actually, patron saint of firefighters.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
So the last 2, if you want them,
Yes.
Yes.
the hero, the person who sets the fire so they can put it out and rescue people.
Oh.
And although I myself kind of lump that into a mental disorder, it's actually
Yeah.
categorized separately as.
Okay.
I agree. It's kind of,
All right.
yeah.
And then the final one is protests or terrorism.
Oh, right.
Oh,
yeah,
there
of
you
course.
go. Okay. The second to last one, the hero one, is kind of like the Munchausen by proxy for fire starting.
Right.
Yeah.
Baron Munchausen by proxy. How big a percentage of the population of the world is an arsonist?
In 2012, over 62,000 arsons were committed in the United States.
62,000
Nearly $1 billion damage in losses.
arsonical incidents. Okay.
and over 80% of arsonists go on each arson crime. The perpetrator goes unpunished. 80%.
Okay. But how many arsonists?
Because they don't get caught, or they don't get convicted, or
well, in British Columbia in 1997, this is just some numbers I really quickly grabbed off one of the fire inspector's desks. There were just over 1,600 fires that year, 1,600 arson fires that year. 105 adults were charged, 80 juveniles were charged, and about 160 juveniles were dealt with informally by police.
Right.
So what we've occasionally had is the young fire starters show up and they have to apologize to our fire chief.
Right.
And he puts on the full uniform and puts on the stern look.
That must be a fun day.
Right.
They're bawling. The thing about it's quite effective.
It's straight. Yes.
Yeah.
Have we not all had those moments in our life where an authority figure that we have no control over has just been like standing over us going, shaking their head, and we're like, yeah, oh God, I'm so sorry, never.
Yeah. You can
and
go to
I'm
the
pretty
jail
sure
for the rest of your life.
I have never done those things that I've sworn I would never do again.
Yeah. And you get teens that are doing it, they're egging each other on kind of thing. They really don't want to burn whatever down, but they do it to show off to each other and then,
the girls and the ladies.
It's Scared Straight, just with a lot less talking about butt fucking. Nobody ever saw Scared Straight?
No.
Oh, yeah. Now, the one thing about arsonists is, except for professional torches or people that have mental disorders, most arsonists never commit it again. Arsonists that are caught, arrested, tried, convicted, do their time, get out, and they're more likely to commit any other crime, but arson again.
Oh, really?
The vast majority of arsonists are actually amateurs,
right?
Which they
as opposed to the Professional Arson Society.
I'm sure they're professional.
There are
arsonists
some
out there,
professional. If you saw the movie Backdraft, Donald Sutherland plays a character who's a professional arsonist. So yeah, it's a very odd behavior. With a lot of peculiar people involved in it. Setting out at night is because most arsons are set at night. Most fires are set at night.
Under the cover of darkness.
Yeah. Buildings are the most common target.
As opposed to hobos wrapped in tires.
Or cars.
Well, also because if you burn a lot of other things, if you're inside a building, the building will then eventually also be burning.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
We're gonna make metal buildings.
But then you get the contents.
Yeah.
We often go to fires and it's just the contents around fire because it's a concrete condominium complex. And
Right.
But that's easier though because the walls are not burning or not.
Well, you got carpets, so the floor's on fire. Someone, they put up wallpaper. So it's amazing what will burn when you give it half a chance.
So as a firefighter, you are anti-wallpaper.
Just as a person of taste,
I would totally agree with that.
The interior designer in you has a problem with it.
The one last thing I was going to say is talking about the diagnosis of pyromania. This gets a little creepy, and it might come up in a couple of the in the news items.
We like creepy.
There is an odd association between people with pyromania and volunteer firefighting.
Yeah.
Right.
Several people I know who have worked as volunteer firefighters have come out of fires to see their own colleagues in handcuffs.
Oh, wow.
And they go, "Did you set this one?" And yes, and this one, and this one, and this one, and
wow.
So it's a connection they have, and that could also be the hero thing going on there. So.
Right. So they become a volunteer firefighter. Here's the chicken and egg question: they become a volunteer firefighter to get access or learn how to do these sorts of things, or they are a volunteer firefighter and just like being around so many fires, they get like caught up in the,
I would think they become
in the
firefighters
heat of the moment.
In the heat of the moment. They become firefighters because they want to be around fires.
I think that's the correct thing.
Yeah.
If you look, a lot of them are not capable of performing a lot of functions in life. They barely get by. So you will often see they've applied at some point in their life to be part of an authority.
Right.
They applied to be RCMP or police officers, and they were declined for whatever reason.
Right.
And that's bothered them their entire life. Some of them may have tried to get on the fire department or join the military. Again, it didn't work out, but they were able to get into the volunteer department.
Right.
Which, it gives them a certain sense of authority, it gives them access to firefighting and the hero thing that they crave so desperately.
Interesting.
You know what? You think about it, it makes perfect sense, but it never occurred to me before.
You think there's like a level of guilt? Like, well, I like starting fires, but if I become a firefighter, that'll balance it out.
In the really, really sick one, in the really, really sick ones, there's not much guilt there.
Public service announcement!
Don't start fires.
I'm so cold, Alan.
Most people who set fires do not consider the resources they are tying up. If firefighters respond to a malicious fire, even a small nuisance fire, that a thing called a nuisance is on fire. They're unavailable for legitimate life-threatening emergencies.
Right.
Additionally, The largest number of firefighter injuries are incurred during emergency responses. If you set the fire and a firefighter is injured responding, you are criminally responsible.
Wait, what does that mean?
So this public service announcement is actually aimed at the arsonist.
Yes.
Yes.
Don't become an
arsonists out there.
arsonist. Stop what you're doing.
No, well, don't stop listening to the show. Stop listening to the show when it's over, and then stop being an arsonist.
Yeah.
What does it mean firefighter injuries are incurred during emergency responses? So you're driving the fire truck?
We're driving the truck, motor vehicle accident involving
Right.
the fire truck. And it's always intersections.
Yeah.
And that's the largest. And also, additionally, then we arrive and you step out of the truck. You've got 85 pounds of equipment on. You step out of the truck, you roll an ankle, you fall over backwards. It happens all the I've broken my own ankle just stepping out of the truck before.
Wow.
So all of that happens, and the arsonist is liable.
So what we've taken away from this public service announcement is Allan Newell has fragile ankles.
I do now.
Well, he did, but now they've been broken and reformed stronger.
In the history. That's very good. 4th century BC, Greece.
Oh, and that's what they lit on fire.
Seeking...
It was a grease fire.
It was a grease fire.
Yeah, it was a grease
that's
fire.
right.
Yeah.
Seeking notoriety, Herostratus burned down the temple of Artemis at Ephesus in ancient Greece.
Okay.
The temple honored a local goddess conflated by the Greeks with Artemis, their goddess of the hunt, the wild, and childbirth.
Okay.
The temple was constructed of marble.
Ooh.
Very flammable marble.
Yep,
measuring 130 meters long and supported by columns 18 meters high. It was one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world.
Wow.
Herostratus proudly claimed credit for the arson in an attempt to immortalize his name.
Oh, did he spell out his name in flammable material and light it on fire? I mean, he does have hero right at the very beginning.
That's right.
Of his
That's
name.
the hero
And it's
complex right there.
That's right.
It's Herostratus, so it's a hero in the sky.
To dissuade those from similar intentions, the Ephesian authorities not only executed him, but attempted to condemn him to a legacy of obscurity by forbidding mention of his name under penalty of death.
All right.
However, this did not stop Herostratus from achieving his goal because the ancient historian Theopompus recorded the event and its perpetrator. Herostratus' name lived on in classical literature and is passed into modern languages as a term for someone who commits a criminal act in order to bask in the resultant notoriety, thus winning herostratic fame.
What was the name of the guy who published the account?
Theopompus.
Okay, so now we know why he did
Theopompus
it.
ass.
He was so full of himself.
Yeah,
that
he was
guy.
so full of himself. He was like, I can publish anything I want. You can't tell me what I can and cannot do. Yeah, all right. Okay. It's all in the name. This is ancient Greeks obviously named people after they were 25 years old.
Yeah, probably.
So they figured out everyone
how it
else
should be
was just
done.
Mr. White, Mr. Black, Mr. Purple, right? That's what everybody was until their 25th birthday. 2002, Chicago. Mark Thompson, a Chicago investment executive, intentionally set fire to his 2-story home to collect $730,000 in insurance money.
Right.
Thompson, who was apparently short on money to support his high-profile lifestyle, used his 90-year-old mother to make it appear like she set the fire to kill herself. Thompson put his mother in the basement, spread lacquer thinner on the walls, and set the fire where she later died. He received $600,000 in insurance money, and his mother's death was ruled a suicide until investigators took a closer look at Thompson's finances and extreme debt. After a number of suspicious money transactions and identity covers, Thompson declared bankruptcy. He was sentenced to 190 years in federal prison.
Wow.
Put his mom in the basement.
And lit the room that she was in on fire.
What do you think his mom had to say about that at the time?
Well, she was 90. She was 90, so she probably was like, what are we doing in the basement? It's
Yeah,
like,
maybe.
I got something I want to show you.
Are you cold?
Oh, you can... Let me set a fire for you.
Yeah.
Probably not very surprising. I'm not very fond of arsonists.
Oh, no?
I was trying to temper some of the language I was using to describe them.
Uh-huh.
Because guys like this, they are indicative of the selfishness that you see in a lot of them.
Yeah.
We'll be talking about a couple more fires here where this guy actually is one of the nicer ones.
Oh,
Because he burned his mother to death in the
Oh,
basement.
we're setting the bar high. Well, low for this guy, evidently, but high for the evilometer.
Well, I'd like to talk about the Happy Land fire.
Oh, that'll be a nice
so
change.
nobody had a problem with it, right? Everyone was happy about that land being
This
on
is
fire.
1990, New York.
Okay.
After immigrating to New York City from Cuba, Julio Gonzalez was working as a warehouse employee when he met Lydia Feliciano, who became his girlfriend.
Okay. Uh-huh.
A decade later, after losing his job and getting dumped, a drunk Gonzalez visited Feliciano while she was at work as a coat check girl at the Happy Land Social Club and a legal bar in the Bronx.
Okay.
Feliciano begged him to leave, and Gonzalez shouted threats while being thrown out by the bouncer.
Seen that a million times.
Yeah, that's called Saturday.
After purchasing $1 worth of gasoline at a nearby gas station, he returned to the club where he poured the gas over the stairs, the only exit, and threw a match on it.
If only gas had been $4 a gallon in 1990, like it is now, maybe this never would have happened because he might not have been able to afford enough gas to do it.
The fire burned so rapidly that patrons didn't have time to stop what they were doing and flee. Most victims were trampled or suffered from asphyxiation. Feliciano was one of the 6 survivors.
Oh, wow.
6.
Yeah.
Out of I don't know how many were in an illegal nightclub with one entrance.
About 85
damn.
people died, I think it was.
Yeah. The intended target was one of the survivors. Well, I mean, of course she was. She was the coat check girl. She's like right at the very front.
Yeah, maybe.
She got out with an armload of coats.
Gonzalez watched the firefighters battle the blaze, then went home to nap.
All right.
When police interviewed the survivors, Feliciano told them about her fight with Gonzalez.
Right, okay.
Gonzalez admitted to setting the fire. He didn't even get rid of the evidence. His gas-soaked clothes were still in his apartment.
I don't think this guy was thinking about consequences or repercussions.
So that's the other
He
thing.
was drunk at the time.
I mentioned it earlier. Most arsonists are amateurs. They don't have a skill set that they're able to develop.
How amateur do you need to be to know that you shouldn't bring your gas can that you lit the fire with and your gas-soaked clothes back to your house?
It doesn't sound like he cared.
No, it doesn't sound like you care.
Right? Like he admitted it, didn't bother covering it up. Yeah, I burned it. And
He should have done. He should have burned those clothes while he was still wearing them.
Oh, yeah. He was found guilty of 174 charges of murder, 2 for each person who died,
so
Okay.
87.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
wow.
and was sentenced to 25 years for each count for a total of 4,350 years.
Wow.
Now,
Good.
He's going to be old when he gets out.
He's going to be so old, isn't he?
How do you get 2 murder charges per person?
That's a good question.
Is the court intimating that we could all die twice? That we have 2 lives to give?
Maybe the murder was so horrible it counted for 2
like
murders.
you were, your skin was murdered first, and then your body was murdered
maybe.
second.
He was charged with 174 counts of murder, 2 for each victim, but he was found guilty of 87 counts of arson and 87 counts of murder.
Ah, there you go. So not 2. It was 2 counts, but not 2 counts of murder.
Yeah,
Got it.
arson and murder 87 times.
Yep.
Wow.
I guess people are some people's property, right? Right? Because the definition is to light
Slaves.
somebody's
Yeah,
property.
you burned the person and all the clothes that they were wearing, which is
see.
their property.
There's
You
the
own your
arson.
own life,
Yeah.
presumably.
Yeah.
I guess there's probably a philosopher out there
Yeah.
that could argue that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We mentioned just a little bit earlier about arsonists are amateurs, and we have very dedicated, very well-trained fire cause determination experts, fire investigators.
Yep.
Most departments in the world have them. And I won't talk too much in depth about what they do. I really don't want to, send the arsonists that might be listening to
Some hot
school here
tips.
some hot tips.
There you go. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
definitely
it was
keep
interesting because
that-
I was watching some documentaries about arsonists, and they do go into fairly detailed about how they started the fire,
Yeah.
what devices they used.
They'll usually
all
show
kind of
that
stuff
because
like that.
by that point in time, they've already caught it and they know about those ones. So if you use the same technique, they're not always screamingly worried because
Right.
they can
They can
suss
figure it out. Yeah.
Fire is odd in that, of course, it destroys a lot of evidence just by
Right.
burning it. And then the firefighters come stomping through, spraying water everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But it's amazing how much evidence is left behind. It's actually shocking how much delicate evidence is left behind. We'll be discussing an arsonist coming up in a bit whose device was 3 matches, a rubber band, and a cigarette.
Wow.
And they found several of them. They weren't completely destroyed in the fire.
Right.
I've gone into fires afterwards, taken my mask off, and you go, whew, I can smell gasoline in here.
Right.
So not everything is destroyed. Lots is left behind. And we have very sophisticated technology, very, very well-educated, very smart people who I've seen them show up at a fire and walk almost in a straight line, and they go, fire started here.
Yeah.
Wow.
They can trace it back through the visual telltales,
Right.
back to the point of origin.
And much like you, they don't like these arsonists, and they get to work in a job where they get to find them all and
Exactly.
get them. Yeah,
Exactly.
I can imagine that's got to kind of feel good.
Yeah.
Good times. Maybe they get some kind of sexual satisfaction from it.
Sure. Good for them.
But that's an
Catch
okay
an
one.
arsonist.
That's okay for them to do.
Oh yeah, you're all right. If they catch an arsonist and get a rage boner out of it, and
Rage boner.
right, and fantastic.
Is there something you have to tell us about how you get boners, Kevin?
I'm not admitting to anything.
This is 2002, Park County, Colorado. A love letter went terribly wrong in the 2002 case of Terry Barton, a U.S. Forest Service worker who burned a letter from her estranged husband, which caused a massive wildfire that burned 138,000 acres outside of Denver, destroyed more than 100 homes, and forced the evacuation of over 5,000 people.
Oh, this is a wildfires callback.
So burning love letters?
Investigators found the remnants of some burned matches in a letter mailed to Barton, who called in the fire and later admitted to starting it.
Okay.
She told authorities she was burning papers that outlined a separation agreement with her estranged husband in a campground fire ring when the fire sparked and raged out of control.
Right.
Authorities doubt her story.
Okay.
Hundreds of firefighters fought the fast-moving fire, which caused nearly $40 million in firefighting costs. Barton pleaded guilty, was sentenced to 6 years in federal prison, and was ordered to reimburse the federal government $14.6 million.
That's quite the reimbursement.
So let me
This
get
is one of the lady arsonists.
Yeah.
larcenists, if you will.
Larcenists.
So she's burning love letters, but she didn't burn them like in a fire pit, like she says. Is that the argument?
I think
why
that's
she
what
was
they're
guilty?
saying, that she might have just been like throwing them around or something.
Or just cobbled a story together afterwards.
Right.
That she was just doing something stupid, and this is what she covered it up
Right.
with.
Yeah, as opposed to like lighting a love letter on fire and then like flicking it into the like dry woods.
If the authorities doubt her story, maybe they didn't find the matches and letter anywhere near any kind of safe fire ring.
Well, and the fact that she was convicted and sentenced to jail says they found it a criminal act.
There was some convincing evidence to suggest.
Well, in 1970, in Nashville, Indiana, 52-year-old Clarence Roberts was one of the most prominent citizens in the small town of Nashville.
Okay.
On the evening of November 18th, 1970, a garage on his property was destroyed in a fire, and the badly burned body of a man was found at the scene.
Oh, crime cover-up.
He was tentatively identified as Clarence.
Oh.
But the story soon became a lot more complex.
Okay. All right.
Clarence's wife, Geneva, was slated to receive a substantial life insurance payout for her husband's death. But suspicion grew that the dead man was not actually Clarence. The victim had a different blood type.
Oh.
And even though Clarence's ring was later found among the debris, it showed no signs of heat damage and appeared to have been planted there.
So, but I mean, it is possible that Clarence could have changed his blood completely before he got caught in that fire.
I think so.
Yeah.
Keith Richards does it all
Follow
the time.
Follow up to our blood episode.
Both of the fire victims' hands were burned off during the fire.
Oh, how convenient. And not just the fingerprints, but the whole hand.
Yes. Geneva never received the life insurance money. 10 years later, she would be killed when a fire engulfed her home.
Oh, wow.
Incredibly, she was found next to the burned body of a man believed to be the actual Clarence Roberts.
Oh, so they died in a fire. Oh, that is karma. If you don't believe in karma, this story might just change your mind.
Shortly before the first fire in 1970, Clarence had been suffering from serious financial problems. The day before his supposed death, Clarence was seen around town with an unidentified transient.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
It is theorized that Clarence may have murdered this man and used his body to fake his own death. Clarence's plan would have been to disappear and start a new life once Geneva cashed in on his life insurance policy.
Of course.
Throughout the decade, there were numerous sightings of Clarence in Mexico, New Mexico,
All right. Oh,
and
wow.
Germany.
So he preferred New Mexico and Old Mexico.
Yeah, he liked all the Mexicos.
All right.
And it seems possible that once he realized his wife would not collect the money, he decided to kill both her and himself in a murder-suicide.
Oh, wow.
However, speculation remains that an unknown third party started the fire, which killed Clarence in Geneva, leaving this bizarre case with more questions than answers.
So plan A, I'm going to burn this transient. We're going to get money. Plan B, we'll just burn each other to death. And
Right.
Things will be not as bad.
As if being a drifter isn't hard enough.
Right.
Right.
Right?
Right.
hey,
You've always got people
don't
looking
shit
at
on the
you.
life of a drifter.
Yeah.
It's a romantic and...
Oh, you seem cold. Come to my house and I'll warm
Exactly.
you up.
Yeah.
Got it.
You can't trust anyone that's trying to be nice to you.
Ugh.
You need a convenient body, don't you?
1979, Sydney, Australia. For over 40 years, Luna Park, Sydney was one of the most prominent amusement parks in all of Australia, and one of their more popular rides was the Ghost Train. That was it. It went like 1 mile an hour, and it made that noise the
There's
whole
this guy
time.
behind you in a sheet
No. It's,
going, "Woo."
And you
or
would have
no,
got away with it, too, if it weren't for you pesky kids.
It's just a regular like kid-style train,
Yeah.
but the guy at the front who like pulls the little toot-toot thing,
Yeah.
it goes woo, woo,
Oh, I see.
woo. do. And that's
it wasn't supposed to do that. It was kind of broken.
Yeah, and they're like,
Well, it's called the Ghost Train.
However, in June of 1979, the ghost train became the site of a tragedy when it was consumed by a massive fire. The fire broke out inside the train tunnel while over 30 passengers were still on the ride, and the majority of them would be pulled out of their cars to safety. Unfortunately, after the fire was extinguished, the remains of 7 victims were found inside the tunnel, including John Godson and his 2 young sons and 4 other adolescent boys. It was tentatively believed that electrical problems were responsible. However, 8 years later, a woman named Anne Buckingham, of the Palace fame, came forward with a shocking allegation. Buckingham was the niece of Abe Saffron, of the Spice fame, one of the most notorious underworld crime figures in the history of Australia. Saffron recently passed away and was suspected of being responsible for numerous acts of arson throughout his life. Buckingham claimed that her uncle had been intent on buying Luna Park, and although he never intended to get anyone killed, he had ordered the ghost train fire as part of a plan to gain control of the park's lease. Even though Buckingham soon recanted her statements, they were still published in the Sydney Morning Herald. After nearly 35 years, it remains a mystery whether Abe Saffron was responsible for the ghost train fire or if the whole thing was just a tragic accident.
Possible arson.
It's a ghost arson.
Now, in 1961, in Niterói, Brazil, Niteroi.
Niterói, maybe?
It's a municipality in the state of Rio de Janeiro.
Okay.
And on December 15th, 1961, the Grand Circus Norte Americano was performing.
The Grand Black Circus.
A popular show that routinely sold out, the circus set up multiple huge tents for each act. On this evening, one of the tents caught fire.
Okay.
Within minutes, the entire tent was consumed by the flames, and somewhere in the neighborhood, between 323 or 372 people, I was found different numbers,
right,
were killed by the blaze.
That's a lot of people. That's like hundreds of people.
Possibly up to 500 total, including those who succumbed to injuries.
Oof.
This is the highest death count I could find for an arson-related fire.
Okay.
There's no handy lists on the internet that I was able to track down. Upon investigation, the case was determined to be arson as a disgruntled employee lit the tent ablaze.
Okay.
However, I also found citations of investigations that pointed to electrical problems that were covered up.
Right.
So maybe there might have been some scapegoatism.
All the stuff I've ever read always had the disgruntled employee.
Yeah.
Right.
That was the stuff I came across.
Well, it could be disgruntled employee, and that started a fire, and then the fact that there was not good electrical just made
it worse.
it worse.
And it came to light after the investigation.
Yeah. The movement for the restoration of the 10 Commandments of God was a Ugandan doomsday cult.
Oh, wow, there you go. Ugandan doomsday cult. Great punk band.
Yeah.
It was formed in the late 1980s when a politician and banana beer brewer claimed they had visions of the Virgin Mary.
Right.
I like the fact that there's a banana beer brewer in this story.
Yeah.
That you can make beer from bananas.
And no wonder you have
This
visions
is the real
of
story.
This is the real story.
That's
We're
right.
burying the lead.
And when you drink it, you have visions of the Virgin Mary.
Yeah.
That's true.
He wasn't a good banana beer brewer.
Yeah.
Unless that's what you wanted.
Maybe, maybe it was.
So who's legitimately been
In early 2000, followers of the religious movement perished in a devastating fire and a series of poisonings and killings that were either a group suicide or an orchestrated mass murder by group leaders after their predictions of the apocalypse failed to come about.
Well, there was an apocalypse coming. It was just very specific.
No, this is the apocalypse.
Yeah, it is coming to just these people.
Personal apocalypse.
I am the apocalypse. In 1999, leaders urged their followers to confess their sins in preparation for the end.
Right.
January 1st, 2000 passed without the advent of the apocalypse, and the movement began to unravel.
Oh, no. That's the worst.
Yeah.
It's the worst kind of a movement, an unraveling one.
Ugandan police believe that some members who were required to sell their possessions and turn over the money to the movement rebelled and demanded the return of their money.
Of course.
And
you owe me for no apocalypse.
Yeah.
You said
you promised me apocalypse. Give me my money back.
Yeah, that's right. Pay up. I want a refund.
I need that
They're
money
just
now.
asking for a cult refund.
Yeah. Another date was immediately predicted. March 17, 2000 was the new end of the world.
Sure.
Okay, of course.
Just move those goalposts.
We forgot to carry the one.
Right? Yeah.
The movement held a huge party at Kanungu and roasted 3 bulls and drank 70 crates of soft drinks.
There's only like 2 people there.
That sounds like my kind of party.
That's a lot of bulls and soft drinks.
Yeah.
They were all out of Kool-Aid, so they had soft drinks.
It's their own kind of Red Bull.
Yeah.
On the 17th, group members arrived at their church in Kanangu to pray and sing. Minutes later, nearby villagers heard an explosion and the building was gutted in an intense fire that killed all 530 in attendance, including dozens of children.
Okay, so maybe this is the new most amount of
This
people.
might be the
Well, wait,
most, yeah.
is
dying
this
from
arson
fire.
or is this a callback to our explosions episode?
It's a little of both. Although it says
First
here
explosion,
the fire.
then fire.
Explosions are arson too.
Yep.
Oh,
There you go.
explosions are arson
If you have fire following the explosion, it's arson.
Okay.
I should get a T-shirt made.
The windows and doors of the building had been boarded up. The 5 principal cult leaders were assumed to have died in the fire. Several days before, movement leader Dominic Kataribabo was seen buying 50 liters of sulfuric acid, which may have started the fire.
Okay. How do you start fire? Oh no, you know what? We don't. We don't want it. Let's not. I was about to ask how you start a fire with sulfuric acid, but we don't. We don't want to turn this episode into arsonist
How-to.
school.
The how
that's
to.
right.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Arson
I got it.
Tradecraft 101.
Yeah.
We've
Yeah.
already said too much.
Don't do it. Don't. You
Yeah.
want to set a fire?
Just rewind back to our public service announcement and don't do it.
I would go to the firefighters and say, I really want to set some fires. Can I do it safely, please?
In your
How can
training
I
area.
do that? Yeah. Can I come in your training area and get off on it? Is
Just
that okay?
go watch the Yule log show.
Oh,
Tape
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
They
Or I-
have it on Netflix. You can just load
Yeah.
up and
Yeah.
watch it
Watch
all
ours.
day long.
I like the part where the hand comes in and puts a log in.
Yeah,
Stoke,
the
stoke.
poker, yeah, stuff.
YouTube actually has I think a 5-hour Darth Vader burning
Yes, from
video that you
Return
can
of
watch
the
if you don't want to watch
There
just
you
a
go.
log,
The Sith log.
the Sith Yule.
Yeah.
Days after the church fire, police investigated movement properties and discovered hundreds of bodies at sites across southern Uganda, including 6 bodies sealed in the latrine of the Kanungu compound, as well as over 300 at various other compounds, estates, and farms.
Right.
Some were poisoned and stabbed.
Move.
Yeah.
Move.
So the fire was let's get most of them, and then the rest
Yeah.
were all taken out
Yeah.
that way.
If I can't have my apocalypse, nobody does, and I'm taking you all with me.
Well, no. If apocalypse does not come to Kanungu, Kanungu must go to the apocalypse.
Ah, yes, of course.
like
of course.
The University of Washington firebombing incident
Okay.
was a 2001 arson. A firebomb was set off at the Center for Urban Horticulture, causing an estimated $4 million in damages.
What does somebody have against horticulture?
Well, the Earth Liberation Front
Oh, they're against horts?
claimed
Or are they against culture?
They claimed responsibility for the fire.
Okay.
They are liberating Earth from all of us non-Earth-like humans.
They're liberating Earth from structures, evidently. From
Maybe.
horticulture structures.
The motivation for the arson was rooted in suspicions by the ELF that Professor Bradshaw, a plant geneticist, was engaging in experiments funded by the industry to produce genetically engineered trees.
This is a genetically engineered tree thing. What would be the motivation behind genetically engineered trees? Like I get like bumper crops or whatever. You genetically engineer them so that they can like resist
Or maybe
insects or
fire resistant trees.
fire resistant trees.
Do we want wood that doesn't burn?
I do. I
Well,
want to
you
make
know,
my house of.
Yeah, use it in your house.
Oh, there's two kinds of wood.
All right, okay.
In their statement, the ELF claimed that Bradshaw continues to unleash mutant genes into the environment that is certain to cause irreversible harm to forest ecosystems.
Oh, so these are crackpots.
As long as universities continue to pursue this reckless science,
Oh, the air
They put
quote
it in
science?
quotes.
Okay.
they run the risk of suffering severe losses.
That's because their definition of science is totally different.
Our message remains clear. We are determined to stop genetic engineering.
You know, the one positive thing I can say about the ELF is I like that song of theirs. Don't bring me down.
You got me going everywhere. Don't bring me down.
Isn't that ELO?
I don't know.
Oh, maybe.
It's
Sorry, I got it wrong. Forget it. Move on.
Okay.
Don't bring me down.
Bruce!
Who's
Don't
Bruce?
bring me down.
Every Australian ever.
Oh, okay.
Horticulture? Don't bring me
I thought
down.
it should be Proust.
Proust?
Marcel Proust.
Oh.
Don't bring
Was
me
he-
down, Proust.
Was Proust a bummer?
Let's
feel like we're
pretend we're
getting off
educated
the-
and say that he was.
We're getting off the rails here.
Yeah.
You know, as a guest, you just sit here and just watch it unfold before you.
Bradshaw was quoted in the University of Washington Alumni Magazine as saying, "I have never genetically engineered a tree, much less released one into the environment."
Even if he had, it's not a fucking crime.
While he had considered, well, not,
What if you make
not
triffids?
legally,
What if you make triffids?
might be a crime against nature. Yeah, triffids. There you go.
You would need the Earth Liberation Front for that because triffids are aliens.
Well, his response, Bradshaw's response should have been, why the hell would we want to genetically modify a tree? What would be the point?
Well, he had considered doing genetic research. At the time, he was doing experiments on transgenic tissue samples from poplar trees, a fast-growing species, which he hoped could reduce the need to log natural forests if raised privately.
Right. Oh, that would be so terrible for the earth to not to have these farms of trees that we could just keep growing instead of having fucking idiots.
The fire took the biggest toll on the work of some 24 colleagues involved in a wide range of plant research. Other research projects destroyed by the fire include wetlands restoration and endangered stickweed plants.
Oh, the stickweed.
Oh, the lowly stickweed.
Oh, you know what, though? I mean, it's unfortunately named. Like, nobody likes a stick. Nobody likes a weed. So then you come up with the stickweed. You're like, screw that.
Yeah. The investigation into the incident was eventually merged into an FBI-led affair known as Operation Backfire.
Oh, yeah. It does sound like they're lighting their farts on fire, though.
It does.
Or they're like, they set fire to our stuff, we're going to set fire to their stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Backsies.
Backsies Fire.
Yeah.
Operation Backsies Fire. Which also covered 6 other investigations into radical environmentalist activity.
Okay.
Lacey Phillibaum pled guilty along with Jennifer Kolar.
Oh, yeah.
A Klingon.
More larcenists.
To her role in the arson. Both women made an agreement to assist prosecutors in exchange for reduced sentences.
Okay.
Both women have since been the target of derision by other activists. Your activism is dumb.
How dare you turn on us after setting an arson fire?
Bill Rogers, considered by the FBI to have been a significant organizer within ELF, was charged with 1 count of arson. He later committed suicide in his jail cell by asphyxiating himself with a plastic bag. 2 other conspirators were charged in this and other arson incidents.
About something that wasn't even going on.
I'm going to burn this building down because they're doing this. We're not doing that.
You burned the stickweed, and then ruined like 5 of their own lives. All going to jail and whatnot.
Activism gone wrong.
I think we are all generally kind of environmentalists here. We agree that the environment should be protected.
I share things on Facebook all the time.
Yes, exactly. But like genetic engineering is not bad. We're trying to do it to actually help the environment.
No.
You Frankenstein monster.
Yeah, I'm the good thing that was treated badly by the ignorant villagers.
Joe.
Even though I was very nice, I was just scary looking, just like genetic modification.
Joe. Monsanto.
I'll give you a whole article on how Monsanto's actually not all that evil. I mean, they do some shitty business stuff.
Monsanto.
I think they're a major corporation that's does what major corporations do.
Yeah,
but
Monsanto.
It's a verb now.
The evil claims are all totally horseshit.
I feel we're getting off the rails again.
Yeah.
Fuck it.
Well, this should be the Railways episode because we're getting off and on the rails so often.
Hey, you guys. You Caustic Soda guys. It's me, your favoriteest fan, Phil.
Howdy, Phil.
I don't know how I got in the studio, but I wanted to know how I could support you guys. You guys should have all of my money, or a portion thereof.
Well, Phil, you can head on over to patreon.com/caustic soda and support us with as little or as much money per episode as you'd like.
How does that work?
It's pretty simple. You go to Patreon, sign up, and then at our Patreon page, you declare how much you would like to give us for every single podcast we make. That can be $1, $5, 25 cents, whatever you'd like. And at the end of the month, Patreon charges you and sends us the money.
Oh, it's a per podcast expense. All right.
And you can change it and modify it in any way, shape, or form you please as it goes on. If you like one episode, you can donate more. If you don't like an episode, you can donate less.
Oh, I love them all equally. I can't decide.
Perfect. Give us all your money.
Okay, here it is. Tap, 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 tap.
Patreon off? No, Patreon.
Here's a very famous one. 1980s Los Angeles, the Pillow Pyro.
I hate this guy. I really hate this guy.
Sounds so cute, though.
The Pillow Pyro?
Yeah.
It's alliteration, your favorite. Special thanks to our researcher, Dave E., for work on this one.
Yep.
1984, South Pasadena. In October, a major fire broke out at a hardware store in a shopping plaza. The store was completely destroyed by the fire, and 4 people died in the blaze, including a 2-year-old child.
Ooh, what, in a hardware store?
Yeah.
What are 2-year-olds?
Well, it was housewares. It would almost be like a combination hardware and a Michael's craft store kind of place. You have to imagine that kind of put together. He was there with his grandmother.
Wait, was the fire was lit? Well, it was open for business? Wasn't like lit like after hours or something?
No. The Pillow Pyro, his thing was businesses open.
Arson investigators from around California converged on the destroyed store and declared the cause to be an electrical fire. The one arson investigator insisted the cause was arson.
Right.
3 years later...
So if this were a movie, that would be like
He's the Maverick.
The Nicolas Cage character. It's arson. Nobody believes him because they're like,
would
look at him.
probably be the Donald Sutherland character, actually.
Something doesn't smell right. We're standing in the middle of an burnt building. Of course it doesn't smell right. I mean about this fire.
3 years later, a convention for arson investigators was held in the city of Fresno.
Okay.
During and after the convention, several suspicious fires were set in Bakersfield nearby.
Okay.
Presumably. This, combined with the recovery of a single unmatched fingerprint left on a piece of notebook paper as part of a time delay incendiary device,
Okay.
Wow.
led Captain Casey of the Bakersfield Fire Department to suspect that an arson investigator from the Los Angeles area was responsible for these arsons.
Oh, this is getting interesting. So it's actually an arson investigator who's behind it all.
Yep.
This is craziness.
5 years after the first incident in March 1989, another series of arsons was committed along the California coast in close conjunction with a conference of arson investigators in Pacific Grove.
Wow, this guy really doesn't... He's not very good at covering his tracks, obviously.
By comparing the list of attendees from the Fresno conference with the list of attendees of the Pacific Grove conference, Captain Casey was able to create a short list of 10 suspects.
Wow.
All of the people on this short list were cleared of suspicion when their fingerprints were compared with the fingerprint that Casey had recovered from the piece of notebook paper found at that arson crime scene.
Uh-oh. This really is the plot of a movie, right? He like hits a brick. He thinks he's got it solved. He hits a brick wall. There's
Absolutely
all this like sort of insider
Hollywood
kind of
has done
conspiracy.
it. Hollywood has made this into a movie.
Oh, well, of course they did.
A couple of years later, another series of arson fires broke out, this time in and around the LA metropolitan area. As a result, a task force, nicknamed the Pillow Pyro Task Force.
Now, why was this guy called the Pillow Pyro?
His device was the one I mentioned earlier. So he would take a cigarette and wrap 3 paper matches around it.
Yeah.
Put a rubber band around that to hold it together. Then that would all be wrapped in a little piece of just yellow legal stationery, the yellow with the blue lines on it. Just a piece of that wrapped around it. And then he would take it into a store that sold like craft supplies and go to the foam rubber that's used for making pillows and that sort of thing. And he would stick it in a pile of the foam rubber, light the cigarette, and it takes 6 or 7 minutes for it to burn down till it hits the matches.
Right.
They flare up. They set the styrofoam on, or the foam rubber on fire, and that stuff is just basically solid gasoline. And boom, it's gone.
Right.
Very effective and incredibly fast.
Right. Which is why 2-year-olds, their stubby little legs can't run out of the store in time.
Investigators finally matched the fingerprint Casey had to John Orr, an arson investigator with the Glendale Fire Department in Southern California.
Right.
The investigator who had insisted that the first South Pasadena hardware store fire in 1984 was arson.
Oh, so he investigated his own arson.
Yeah. He kept talking about how there's this one guy out there that I can't get. Because he was he fit all the categories of the weird person who's an arsonist. Again, he had always wanted to be a police officer. He'd never been able to get on the police department and became a firefighter. And then arson investigators in Glendale are considered law enforcement officers. So he was so happy carrying his weapon.
Right.
He was always prominent with a gun on his hip. And he was always being smacked down by the police authorities that worked with him, saying, "Stop telling people you're a police officer. Stop telling people you're law enforcement."
Oh.
And he was very successful at very short-term relationships with women. He even had a string of marriages, but you could see all of his life was a mess. Disasters was with this, trouble with authority, but desperately wanting himself to be an authority figure and wanting everyone to admire him. So he's out lighting this fire and becoming a top-notch arson investigator.
He was the one investigator at the very first fire who said that it was an arsonist and not an electrical fire?
He was very upset that he wasn't getting the credit.
Orr then became a suspect and the subject of investigation and surveillance for several months. He was alerted to this surveillance effort when he discovered and removed a tracking device that belonged to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, hidden under the bumper of his vehicle.
Okay.
However, a teletrack tracking device was later installed behind his dashboard when he brought his city vehicle for service some months later. Shortly thereafter, Orr was present at the scene of a suspicious fire, so Orr was arrested in 1991.
Right.
He was convicted of 3 counts of arson and sentenced to 3 consecutive terms of 10 years in prison. He still maintains his innocence, The ATF believes that Orr set nearly 2,000 fires
What?
between 1984 and 1991.
What?
Yeah, he was a busy man.
Furthermore, arson investigators cited that after Orr was arrested, the number of brush fires in the nearby foothill areas decreased by over 90%.
What?
Yeah, one of the things he used to do is he would scamper up into the hills, light brush fires, get the departments responding to those, then he'd get down into the city and light 2 or 3 stores on fire at the same time.
Look at the power I have.
And then he would just miraculously show up. Part of what undid him is he lit one fire and then raced home, got the phone call from dispatch saying, here's a fire, we want our arson investigator there.
Right.
But they gave him the wrong address.
But he went to the
right
right
place
address.
anyway.
Nice.
Wow.
2,000 fires in the span of what, 6 years?
Yeah, 7.
7 years, 2,000 fires, that's 300. He's lighting a fire a day.
He's a busy man.
A film entitled Point of Origin, starring Ray Liotta as John Orr, was released by HBO in 2002. The title of the film is a reference to a novel of the same name written by Orr about a serial arsonist who is also a fireman.
Please tell me he didn't make money off this.
No, but he wrote it before he went to jail?
I don't think the book got published.
No,
They found it
jail-
in manuscript form.
Yeah.
All right.
Jail in 92, and this is 10 years later.
Okay.
Investigators believe that Orr's novel chronicles real acts of arson due to similarities with fires that they believe Orr actually set. Orr states the novel is a work of fiction and has no relation to any actual events.
Right.
He has expressly stated the character of Aaron Stiles, the character in this book,
Of course.
was a composite of arsonists I arrested.
I'm surprised the character's name isn't Super Styles Coolio.
Well, another arson investigator noted that Aaron Stiles is an anagram for I set LA arson.
All right, who cares?
He actually wrote this manuscript while he was lighting the fires.
Wow.
He was taking writing workshops and writing his book. And I mean, he doesn't hide stuff. The fires are exactly his fires. The devices are the ones he was using. And even the characters, even the names of characters that die in the book in the fires were the names of people that died in the fires he set. Again, he's one of those people, he thinks he's extraordinarily clever.
Right. Yeah.
As he shouts at them from prison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that he's in. And to this day, he's saying, I'm innocent. We got your fingerprints. Come on.
And the book you wrote?
And the book you wrote. Yeah. And you just happened to find the right address when you were given the wrong one. I mean,
1995, Seattle, the Mary Pang warehouse fire. On January 5th, 1995, Martin Pang torched a Chinatown International District building owned by his wealthy parents, killing Lieutenant Walter Kilgore, Lieutenant Gregory Shoemaker, and firefighters Randall Terlicker and James Brown in what remains the Seattle Fire Department's deadliest fire.
Right.
The blaze was set, according to prosecutors, so Pang could collect insurance money on the warehouse. He was adopted as an infant from Hong Kong by his parents, a Mercer Island couple who indulged Pang with an almost unlimited allowance.
Right.
Friends and associates of Pang described him in 1995 interviews as a handsome, charming, intelligent, and cunning man with a propensity for fast cars and violence. So a little different from what you said. He's
No,
handsome.
keep going.
Oh,
So
okay.
he's Vin Diesel.
He's Vin Diesel.
in fact, this guy, I don't think
Propensity
he's...
for violence, fast cars.
In this case, you would need Dr. Rob for this, but I think he's less of a pyromaniac and more of a sociopath.
Yeah, I think you're
judging
right.
with what's about to come up.
Well, here we go. His 4 marriages all end in divorce and violence.
All right. Okay.
According to court records, he broke the back of one ex-wife with a kung fu kick, shattered the jaw of another, and severely beat the face of a fiancée.
Oof. This guy's a real class act.
Yep. Pang flew from Los Angeles to Seattle, set the fire, then returned to L.A. before fleeing to Mexico City, then to Rio de Janeiro.
Okay.
He was arrested in Brazil and spent a month fighting extradition.
On a separate note, the fire went very badly. Once he did his work, I've set the fire and I'm off. He actually, part of the warehouse complex was a storage area he used for fuel because he was a race car driver. So he had fuel and lubricants and that sort of thing. So he lit that area on fire.
Right.
But the fire, from the fire department's point of view, went very badly. I don't want to, insult the Seattle Fire Department and my colleagues. There was an enormous investigation afterwards. I have the 50-page final summary of the report by the Federal Emergency Management Agency. fire departments are human beings. People make mistakes. I think even the Seattle Fire Department would say mistakes were made at this fire.
Right.
They operated for well over an hour, unaware there was a basement in the building, and that's actually where the fire was. So the firefighters were standing on top of the floor as it slowly burned away. There were teams operating inside that weren't communicating correctly. So the team that was standing above the fire went, "We've put the fire out. Everything's good." And meanwhile, another team's going, "There's a massive fire," because they were on a different floor and everybody thought they were on the same floor.
Right.
So things were just going going and it happens. So
yeah, well, there's lots of smoke and confusion
Little bit of chaos.
giant warehouse fires.
Yeah.
It's a little bit understandable.
Yep. So they didn't realize there was a basement until the floor gave way and 4 firefighters fell into it. 2 were most likely killed almost instantly. It looks like their masks, the breathing apparatus failed instantly. So it was probably ripped off as they fell. Or the other 2 actually managed to get a fair distance away from the seat of the fire, and then they most likely suffocated,
Right.
or had their lungs burned when they took their masks off when they ran out of air.
Right.
So he managed to get to Brazil. All of this ugliness is going on back in Seattle. He's fighting it. Eventually, he was extradited because Brazil wouldn't extradite him if he was going to get the death penalty. He was given just a relatively low arson charge. He's actually coming out in 2018. And when he's done interviews, he has no feelings about anything. He goes, "I set a fire. They're the ones that screwed up, and it's their fault they died."
Right.
So he has no sympathy. So I always wonder, is he going to have a greeter at the prison when he gets out in 2018? He's not a very nice man.
I'm sure his parents have no problem giving him the insurance money from the warehouse fire.
Oh, is that part of his unlimited allowance?
That's what he did it for, right?
Yeah,
Mission accomplished.
He expected he was going to get multi-millions from it.
So we've got an instant follow-up.
In the news. 2013, Seattle. 57-year-old Martin Pang, the arsonist who set the 1995 warehouse that killed 4 Seattle firefighters, was positioning himself for an after-prison life of luxury through 2 schemes hatched behind bars. One to steal the identity of witnesses against him, and a second to siphon millions of dollars from the Tulalip Resort Casino.
Tulalip.
Pang engineered an elaborate identity fraud scheme with an alleged accomplice on the outside that focused on stealing the identities of firefighters, police officers, and witnesses who played a role in his criminal case.
So it was like a little bit of I want the money, but I also want a little revenge on people who put me away, maybe? Like, it make it taste that much sweeter?
Pang planned to use the money upon his release from prison to flee to Brazil, where he had fled after the warehouse fire,
really
and live
likes
a
Brazil.
luxurious life. Pang is serving a sentence of up to 35 years and planned to use personal information from court documents on his case to create false identities and build a stash of cash in an offshore account.
Okay.
Pang was scheduled for release in 2018, but now could face an additional 3 to 5 years in prison.
Yay!
That's not enough.
No.
Pang allegedly targeted at least 20 individuals involved in this case and had already taken a substantial step towards stealing the identities of 3 people. Seattle Fire Chief Gregory Dean said the recent allegations against Pang have brought back painful memories for the victims' families and the city's firefighters. They deserve to heal from this tragedy, said Dean, who has a photo of the 4 fallen firefighters on his office wall. Pang had birth dates and social security numbers of fire and police personnel from training records that were included in discovery materials turned over by prosecutors as part of the manslaughter case.
Right.
State law has since changed, allowing agencies to redact social security numbers from such records.
Right, got it.
Seattle police said McLean has been arrested, but jail records do not list him as an inmate in either of the Snohomish or King County jails. That's the alleged accomplice.
On the outside.
Accomplice.
Yeah. Arson, manslaughter, and
Fraud.
now identity fraud.
Yep.
This guy's a real charmer.
But he didn't do anything wrong.
Pop culture.
What can you talk about? Backdraft?
Again?
Well, why not? I mean, it's pretty much spot on, like topic-wise.
It's
true.
about arson. Yeah.
We did mention it in our Burns episode because of all the burns on
Donald Sutherland.
and the other guy.
Robert De Niro.
Robert De Niro.
That was a cast of thousands in that movie, like
Jennifer Jason Leigh.
Yeah.
William Baldwin.
Yeah, he got it on the top of a fire truck. Huh?
And Kurt
You
Russell.
guys,
Yeah,
around the firehouse, you guys all just like go, hey, it's time to get it on top of the fire truck, just like Billy Baldwin did it.
Fire
In fact,
hose-
you don't even call it, you don't even like refer to it by anything else. It's like, oh, I'm Billy Baldwining it tomorrow night.
You know,
Special
we
lady.
wash fire hose after every fire, but it's dragged through the ground. It's covered in grit.
It's not a suitable a place to lay down your special lady friend.
No.
And make the beast with two backs.
No.
Unless that's your thing.
Dirty
Right.
hoses.
It's going to smell like a fire.
Maybe his pyrophilia is just the smell of a smoky
Could
truck
be.
after a fire.
Yeah, you know, if you're crazy, yeah, sure. What the heck?
Sure.
Maybe she
all a
said
little
she
crazy.
wanted him to give her his dirty hose, and she meant his penis, and he misunderstood.
Oh, there's one on top of the fire truck. Come on up here.
Yeah, exactly. And it was like it's just all a misunderstanding.
Donald Sutherland, though, he's his character, Ronald. The
Well, he is
arsonist,
ugly.
He does such a good job on that, and of course he's playing the pyromaniac professional torch who has a job goes wrong, and that's why he gets burned, and that's why he's in jail. But just his characterization of, did the fire look at you? It did, and he's really pulling off creepy really well in that. When it was first released, they actually sent packages to almost every fire department in North America, trying to encourage us to go to the movie. And
In your
the
uniforms.
letter that came with it actually said, "What the right stuff did for astronauts, backdraft will do for firefighters."
Wow, nice.
Yeah, I remember
That's a
going, well, that's
tagline.
not going to encourage me to go to this movie,
Put
actually.
that on the poster.
Another creepy arsonist in a movie. I watched, and I believe you watched also, The Last Alarm,
From
the
1940.
1940 film.
It's a very short movie. It's not even an hour.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
And it's all on, you
Well,
can
it's
get it on
public
YouTube.
domain, so
Yeah.
apparently there's lots of different edits that you can find.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the original was like an hour.
Yeah.
Or
Back
so.
when movies didn't have to stick by any rules or regulations, do whatever you wanted.
And it's about a fireman who gets relieved from the force
Mandatory
because
retirement.
mandatory retirement, and he's all stumbling around at home. Oh, I don't have a job. I'm useless to society now.
Drives his
Here,
wife
let
nuts.
me help. Oh, you broke all the dishes. Get out of the kitchen, kind of a thing.
All right, nice.
And so he's kind of moping about, and there's a series of arsons happening around town.
Right.
By this guy who
He's pretty creepy.
he is pretty creepy.
That look he gets on his face when he sees fire.
Yeah, he's an antiques dealer, and he has a very licking his lips and touching his fingers together while
like-
he's watching a fire.
Really, literally, like,
yeah.
you know,
Oh, yeah.
Pretty much.
steepling his evil fingers and licking his lips?
Almost. It's pretty over the top.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Well, 1940.
This
I guess.
movie doesn't hesitate to go over the top. The brush salesman, who
Yeah.
sounds like Elmer
Who
Fudd.
sounds like
comes in,
Elmer Fudd.
And you're like, really?
Wow. Good times.
Yep. So he ends up being called in to help on this investigation because his daughter is dating an arson investigator.
Right.
And everyone's very weirdly connected in this movie. Like
Yeah.
the arsonist
Yeah.
has sold some salt and pepper shakers that is getting delivered to the house while they're having a talk about the arson investigation.
Right.
And so it's all very
Plot manipulative.
Yeah.
It's like a game of Fiasco.
Well, it's almost as
You
if
probably never made.
I haven't played it, but
It was a little strange. The lead female in it, I have to admit, now I don't have the greatest eyesight, and I was watching this without my glasses, but I thought it was an actor who was a male in drag for about half the movie.
Oh dear.
Yeah,
it could have happened.
Sure.
it could have
You
been.
know?
Well, it was just
Mickey
it was that-
Rooney played a Japanese man, for God's
Well,
sake.
it was the 1940s makeup, and she had, they shaved off the eyebrows and penciled them on really thin, so
Right,
she looked
yeah.
a bit like Divine.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
Right.
It was by no means a great movie,
Right.
but it was a short movie.
Yes.
So that's something you could say about it.
Yep, absolutely.
Is anybody else watching the TV series Gotham?
I watched that episode that introduced the character Firefly,
Okay.
I think it's called.
Is that what they called her?
Firefly?
They
There's
never
two.
really referred to
That's
her
true.
by
There's-
name in the episode.
There's two fire-setting characters and in DC.
Yep.
There's Firebug,
Yep.
who's definitely an arsonist.
Okay.
And then there's at least three versions of the character Firefly.
Okay.
One of which is definitely an arsonist.
Got it.
And I did watch that episode of Gotham last night where they introduced her and she gets her costume.
Yeah, it's right in the middle of season 2.
Yeah.
Right? And it's actually a pretty good episode. It's a...
Got the penguin.
The Penguin's been in since episode 1.
Okay.
So you obviously have not been
This is the
paying
only
attention.
episode of Gotham that I've watched more than the first 5 minutes of.
I've seen them all, and
Okay.
season 2 is much... I liked season 1, but season 2 is excellent. Like,
Okay.
really great.
All right.
And this episode where these 3 arsonists
Yeah.
get...
Professional arsonists.
professional arsonists, they get hired to light a series of fires over several evenings to create a distraction so the top dog villain can do what he pleases
Yeah.
in his little side plot. And yeah, there's two brothers and a sister, and the two brothers abuse the sister mercilessly. She gets revenge on them by torching them alive.
Yeah. I did not watch that episode, but I heard about it. And it's her character is pretty well. It's a female, and none of the comic book characters have been female. But the costume is very much the same, and the idea is very much the same.
She decided that she was going to perform arson for all the downtrodden women of the world because she'd been so mercilessly abused by her brothers.
Oh, is that right?
And so she broke into a human trafficking auction.
Oh, okay.
And then basically lit all the human traffickers on fire
And blowed everything up.
Yeah, and then all these scantily clad women fled into the night.
So the only thing I'm confused about with this series, and this is not arson related.
Okay, not
but
specifically.
When is it
arson
supposed to
related.
be set?
It's a prequel to the Batman world that we know. It's,
Okay.
Bruce Wayne is like 13 or 14 or 15
So
years
it's
old.
set in the 80s? Because it doesn't seem very 80s.
Oh, they haven't.
Gotham is timeless.
They haven't exactly chosen a year.
No, Gotham
It
is
has
It's that weird timeless.
It does kind of have that
It's got
feel of like
timelessness.
new and old together.
Yes,
and they
absolutely.
say things like, "Oh, I made a note of something they said that is very much like a phrase that has only been around for the past 2 years."
Oh yeah, no.
yeah.
All the characters basically act as if they're in the modern era. But then there's things like at Gotham City PD that are like taken straight out of the 1940s. Like
Yeah.
they have like whenever you go into like get files or whatever, they have like a card catalog system that needs an assistant that needs a woman who will like literally go through the card catalog to find the file
So
you're
it's all
looking
really
for.
stylized.
It's heavily stylized.
It's weird. It's weird to me.
It's modern day, but Gotham is backwards. So
Yeah.
there's all sorts of backwards stuff in it.
But it's like it's not entirely different from the way some of the movies have been handled. I mean,
No.
Tim Burton's Gotham was
Yeah.
heavily stylized and not really set in any era, and there were like elements from the 40s and all the way up
Right.
to the 80s when it was done. Right, so it's not that surprising. It's been down this road before.
Has Crazy Quilt shown up yet?
Crazy Quilt?
Crazy Quilt, the famous Batman villain, Crazy Quilt? You're not familiar?
I am not familiar with Crazy Quilt.
Crazy quilt.
Let me know when that happens. I'll start
Okay.
watching.
All
Is
right.
he like Ragman?
All right, I'll let you know when I see Crazy Quilt so you can tune in.
It's such a weird feeling to know you're alive. It's such an awful feeling. You're dying inside, and when you wake up, startle to say, I hope I don't go crazy today. It's such a bad feeling, an ominous feeling, a feeling you know that we'll be back when the week is new. And we'll have more gross facts for you. And you'll have things you'll want to hear about. We will too. Zoo 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 zoo.
Caustic Soda was recorded by Mike Leeson while dressed in a bearskin and forced to run from rabid dogs. To comment on episodes and for links and show notes, visit causticsodapodcast.com. Support the podcast by donating on our site or visit patreon.com/causticsoda. Visit us on Facebook, tweet us on Twitter @CausticPodcast. Email us at info@causticsodapodcast.com. I'm Derek Weber. Thanks for listening.
Ooh.